need to be introduced, but folks, I wanted to say that Cecilia and I chatted, and it's really important for two things for me to be here. One is UNM Rainforest is an incredibly valuable resource. So we were talking about ecosystem and connectivity. So I'm pleased to be a partner. I'm pleased to be here. Lisa Cotillo is on our board of New Mexico Angels. And then specifically the program that Cecilia leads, I think is really wonderful. And instead of my trying to recapture it, I was going to impose upon Cecilia to share with it and to start us off with land acknowledgement. Yeah. Have people met Cecilia? Do we need to have her introduce herself to everyone?
Probably.
Okay.
All right. Hi, my name is Cecilia Pacheco-Vicente. I am the program manager for our Tribal Entrepreneurship Enhancement Program that we have here at UNM Rainforest Innovations. And for this, I guess since January, we've been working with the New Mexico Economic Development Department and their JEDI office to provide some technical training based on discovery that we've done as far as like needs and barriers that exist specifically for tribal entrepreneurs. So this is part of that. We're reporting it and we'll be able to use it as a resource to help continue to educate all entrepreneurs, but also specifically Indigenous entrepreneurs on like different ways they can access capital, because through our discovery we've found that's a huge need as well as barrier that a lot of businesses in general face, but then even more so in like the Indigenous communities in New Mexico. So Drew just asked me to do a land acknowledgement. This is the University of New Mexico's land acknowledgement. So founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia, the original peoples of New Mexico. Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to Indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history. So thank you for being with us today, and thank you, Drew.
Thank you. Yeah. Excellent. Hey, welcome. So it's really important to me for us to encompass all parts of New Mexico, and I think the land acknowledgement is little that I can do to be connected to, and for us to think about land we're standing on and the history we're on, the fortunes that we get to be here. So thank you, Cecilia, and thank you again for the invitation. Hi there. So what we're doing, welcome. What we were doing is we were giving everyone a chance to say hello and say their name and whatever organizations or hats they wear. And then if there was anything about this topic today that you really wanted to make sure you were asking either a question or idea, so that we're incorporating your ideas into today's sharing.
Wonderful. Good afternoon. Yes, Loris Manuelito and My name is Loris Manuelito. I come from Tohatchi, a little place called Mahinasata, where the Coyote sits in Tohatchi, New Mexico. Born for the Mexican people clan, and I'm from the near Water clan. And I bring myself here today for accessing capital and everything that all encompasses. I am the CEO and owner of NM Marketplace. It's a 50,000 square foot grocery store that's going to be built and developed in Tohatchi on the reservation. We're in a food desert there, so food sustainability is just the beginning of what it encompasses, but it's meant to be a resilient hub for the community, developing it as such with farm to table. So a lot of green energy concepts with solar and just a lot of community involvement with it. So president of Manuelito Corporation, of which NM Marketplace is a subsidiary, but that will be changing soon into the western part of the Navajo Nation in Arizona. My other hat is a MMIW advocate. I'm a survivor and advocate for it. And yes.
It's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. What you're doing is incredibly important. So great. Awesome. Excellent. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to give those of you who know experiential learning, there's a weaving, right? So we do a little bit of theory and then you try to apply the theory to something practical, a case study, what's happening in your minds, what your needs are with your business. And so I want to do a little bit of that weaving because we're recording this and this is a resource. We've got more slides in here that we're going to share today. But I wanted to include them so that they're available both if there's something after today that you want to refer back to, you have the materials, but then also if this is seen in the future. So by design, we will be showing a couple slides, but not necessarily talking about them. And I say that because sometimes people get really frustrated. They're like, well, what about that slide you just skipped? And it's by design so that there's more that you can learn from just today's session. Okay. So in general, we're talking about the angels, angel investing, this idea of accessing capital. I have Mark to share about WESST for a few words, and then Mark, you'll be here afterwards. I know you had a board meeting, right?
I do, but
Okay.
we'll just kind of see how it goes.
Okay,
I'd like
great.
to get back for the end of the board.
Okay, great. And then those online, we'll make sure that WES's contact information is available. Maybe we can ask you to get into the chat so that he's available. And then after post meeting, we can share his information as well so that people can continue a conversation. Okay, so that's the goal of today. You want to keep going there? And so what we started off with is finding out who's here in the room today, your business, or sometimes, a lot of times when we're talking about access to capital, people are still working on an idea. We've got an idea we haven't opened yet.
Oh, yes, in about 2 years, I have my plan and design, already, my render's already done.
Excellent.
Going into the phase 2 plan and design stage.
Fantastic. Yeah, so we're in process, we're working on it. And sometimes some of us are many idea people. And so we're working on one thing and then there's other ideas that can work. Yeah. And so New Mexico Angels as an entity, for people who don't know it. So we focus on New Mexico companies, New Mexican entrepreneurs, and then also companies or entities that can make a difference to our state and our people. And the reason why we say that way is because in a venture context or high growth context, New Mexico is a small place. It's a small place in terms of population. It's large in terms of landmass. And so bringing others in, particularly with something we might need here, a health need, or something of that nature, and particularly with our nations that are here in New Mexico, our Native American nations, and the vast spaces, Navajo Nation in particular, right, which is larger than Rhode Island. And so there's a lot of things that are needed here that sometimes we can't make. Indigenous meaning local. And so we aren't always making or doing the things here, and so we have to bring things to places as well. So just a few stats, and my thinking on this is to share what New Mexico Angels is. There are other angel groups around the nation. So geographically, if you're working with an entity somewhere else, or if you have an affiliation with someone else. So for example, if someone went to college somewhere else, we had an entrepreneur who went to Purdue, and I happened to be at a conference, and I sat next to the guy who does basically what you do. He does innovation, IP transfers for Purdue, and they had a fund. And they specifically could work with Purdue alumni, and they hadn't had enough Purdue alumni. So being able to use the resources and map opportunity of relationships is really important. And so New Mexico Angels is one organization. There's others throughout the nation. We're the only angel group in the state. But to share some of the things we are doing, we've invested annually, we invest about $2 million. So we're a membership organization of people and organizations coming together. We worked with 18 companies that got funded through our community. There were 75 checks written. So some people wrote multiple checks to different companies. And then we were able to use tax credits. So this state, someone was talking about government programs and other ways to kind of get things going. There are some public opportunities, and we'll be touching on those, or at least sharing some of the names of places to go for public opportunities. Next, please. So just by the numbers, a team of 4, Katie's here to be helpful, student at UNM, and she's been helpful. And she helped organize me around this deck, which is why we had the updated one. And then we have board members. We have 16 board members, worked with 18 companies, and the checks. Keep going. Just a chance for you to see the growth. We've also kind of been in startup mode. During COVID, we were literally shut down. We were a supper club. We were meeting up in Sandia at the casino, and it was closed, as it should be, due for their safety concerns of their business. And so we literally, nothing was happening. And so we started virtually. People came together online, which all of you know isn't perfect. And for doing business, it can be difficult, but at least we're trying to get things going. And we've been able to grow as well because people really want to be part of the community. People want to be members, sponsors, and donors, and contribute to make 1 + 1 = 3. Here are examples of some of the companies we work with. Some of these may be brands that you've known. So for example, Taos Bakes is probably one that's a little bit more in the public consciousness, right? Because you can see their product in grocery stores. It was two guys who were kind of ski bumming. They were living up in Taos. They wanted a healthier way to have an energy bar. They also wanted one that is called, that's not extruded, like at that time years ago, energy bars, I don't know if those of you were really into it, kind of nasty things. They were kind of this, you make this big, huge vat and you kind of literally churn it out into this bar. And so it didn't feel like appetizing food. And so they set out, that was the problem they wanted to solve for themselves through their own experience. Some of these other companies may be a little less known. Ganymede Games were two folks from California who went to Las Cruces and they started making a game for their age group. They're a little closer to my age, I'm 53. And they realized that once you're 53, the first person shooter games that the kids or your nephews or whatever are doing that you're no good at isn't, these guys maybe might be different, but we're not quite as good. So they wanted the puzzle games or we're working with kids. And so my time to game. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment about Taos Bakes.
Yeah, please.
Because it's a pretty big deal in northern New Mexico. They've created about 30+ jobs and like they're up in northern, so I just think that's a really cool thing.
Thank you.
To see from that, like that investment.
Yeah, so I happen to know them because I've worked with them for a number of years. So they are Taos, right? They started in Taos, and then they actually started their manufacturing in the town of Cuesta, which is west of Taos in Taos County, right? But Cuesta is a mining town that was literally kind of shut down because the mine shut down. And so to bring jobs to a small community like that, manufacturing jobs, is a really powerful thing. And the governor at the time thought it was so valuable that she brought her car and her entourage up there for a ribbon cutting of the industrial park. And so that's why I think a lot of us do this. We want your company to be here. We want you to be successful. I want you to be in service to your community, and then also to be able to have that. Thanks. It's just in the news. I bring this up because we have a marketeer here, right? But one of the benefits of our small state is that if you do a business or nonprofit or new initiative, it can get access. People want to hear about it. And then the other thing is that one of the things with a small community is you can access the media. And so to utilize that as a part of your strategy when you're growing is something that's really valuable. If you're kind of in stealth mode or still trying to put the pieces together, maybe you wait for that time. But sometimes, using the media to either find other resources that time, treasure, talent, or to use it as a way to spur forward to your other goals. So think about media and how that fits in to an idea of resources, meaning money. And the reason why I wanted to point out the sponsors, first of all, to thank them, but also to show that in our opinion, I don't know if anyone knows the fable of stone soup, if this is something you've heard of, right? So the stone soup, even in a community where there might not be much, if everyone kind of brings their one thing they're good at, you put it in the soup, and then you can create something that's really yummy. And it's my experience, having worked both internationally and throughout the States, that we can't do it as ourselves, right? Anyone who thinks they're doing it themselves, kind of the myth of the American entrepreneur, I don't really buy into that. What I think is by asking for help and asking for participation, you get the village to help raise the child. And I think that's really important. I've seen it in New Mexico really effectively that there's people here who want to help others. And so if you're our entrepreneur, and I'm looking at you, Carla, as running an organization, because I think you had retired and you thought you had an easy life, and now she's hustling her rear end off, but you're also helping others. And so how do we find the pieces to bring together? And so these are some of our sponsors, and a lot of these folks are willing to be helpful and to help out. So we've got law firms. All of them are willing to give an introductory call and do that for free. So it's not an imposition, it's a pleasure, because they know if they're nice and if they're helpful to you, then you're going to say something nice about them, and that word of mouth is worth the time it takes. So this other thing, I'm branded today New Mexico Angels, and then one of our other hats is New Mexico Vintage Fund. New Mexico Vintage Fund is a separate legal entity. It's a venture fund, and we're looking at high growth companies, right? So in particular, we kind of are that a Silicon Valley idea, the hockey stick and so forth. That's not the only way to run a company. It's not the only way to run a nonprofit. It's not the only choice, but what we're focused on. And so we use it as an example, and you can see the companies that we've supported and see kind of their case studies and their models of how they've done it. And then I wanted to give, this is a couple of the next slides are examples where I'm going to skip over them for us having them as resources. I wanted to share what Tramway Ventures, which is one of someone else who's on the board of the New Mexico Angels and another organization, they've done a map of the capital and federal R&Ds. This is federal research and development dollars, which have come in. And the bottom line is that New Mexico, we often say, thank goodness for Mississippi because we're so bad in statistics. But in this case, it's not the case. We're actually pretty good per capita, benefits of a small population state, of the money that is coming in. So those of us who are talking about finding other ways to have capital, non-dilutive capital, grants, and subsidies, usually I don't suggest that that be the first place people start, but it is an opportunity. And then again, statistics, those of us who are looking at venture funding, kind of a high growth capital, it is a tough time, but this graph is meant to show you this final dot here on the far right, is that we were in a decline. So the media is going to say we're 25% lower than 2 years ago. But what does that really mean? What it means is we're the same that we were 4 years ago. So how is national venture work doing? Well, it's lower than it was before, but what it was before is a peak. So compared to 10 years ago, venture is still pretty active. There's a lot of money available. But because we're in choppy waters, the economy's got some positive things, some negative things, some people are unsure. And I think November has quite a lot to do with that. And so when there's a lack of certainty, that's risk. And when there's risk, in general, finance people would prefer to do less than more. So it is hard to raise money. We'd love to hear about how it's going over there and what else could be done. I'm sure it's a challenge, but there is money. It's just harder and needs a little bit more convincing. And then again, for the state level, the state of New Mexico is actually in a good place around venture, and the story is actually quite good. Okay, angeldom. I'm going to skip over most of this. I'm just going to define the term and leave this section for people to do later because I want to give Mark some more time. So I'm going to do one intro and then I'm going to pass it off to Mark. Again, I don't want to frustrate people who might be here virtually or if you're listening to this recorded, but the whole goal was just to expose you to it and give you a little bit of information. Okay. So the idea of angeldom. So I don't actually like the name. I think it's a little pompous. I think it kind of reinforces colonialism a little bit, to be totally honest. But in the industry, it's kind of a language that's understood. And so the thought is you have someone who's wealthy, who's angelic, right? They're floating over here and they can swoop down and write a check. So there's a lot of imagery that does end up being true, right? An entrepreneur needs some capital. Also, this person's kind of lofty and over there and providing this great thing. But it also infers that they're otherworldly and they're not, there's an unequal relationship. And I prefer to have us think that we're all people working together towards a common goal. And Muslim lending and early Christian lending, I'm Jewish, has something similar. And they actually have a term, they have a mudravada. And that mudravada is the idea that, first of all, if you're going to provide capital to someone else, you shouldn't do it usuriously. You should give them a good deal. You should be fair and appropriate. Number two is that you should have shared risk. And so Muslim lending actually has 4 different ways to do it. Some of which looks like our banking that we would understand, but instead of interest, they do a fee-based structure. But then there's also this idea of you're bringing your sweat, you're bringing the organization, the muscle, and I'm bringing the capital, and we're going to share the rewards and reap the benefits of that. So I prefer to have that be, but the history of angeldom is how do you become an angel? By being an angel or talking to an angel and learning one. So it's kind of infers the secret society, which it doesn't have to be. Okay, let's keep going there. So some definitions of angels that people can look up and learn about a little later. Here's some terminology so that we get kind of the MBA speak, right? Because that's another way of differentiating people. Hey, I'm working, sweating to do my business. I know groceries. I know my community. I don't know finance. So that puts us on an equal basis because this angel person does finance all the time. And so there's a disequilibrium of information. And so the way to address that is ask them questions. Hey, you know, I don't do this every day. Can you tell me what that means to you? In the last 5 times you've done this, what have you done? What's been successful? And so you make them have to explain and demystify this. And here's some examples of why a typical angel, what they might look for and what they're looking at. Again, an angel is somebody who is looking to earn a return. So this isn't a gift, this isn't a grant. There's an expectation and a relationship and a contract of exchange. And then this got back to what I was thinking, I actually mispronounced it, mudaraba, is this idea of sharing risk. Okay, and so Mark, I think we're gonna put you next here, and I'm gonna sit down. And so, Mark, do you wanna start with who you are as a human, West, and then, that's, if you wanna come up here so that the camera grabs you,
Sure.
and then pose upon you?
Wanted to do.
I get it. Yeah, I know, it's one of the top tiers, isn't it? Yeah. Before death or around death, can the camera still get me if I kind of sit right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great, I just. Legion.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Gilboard, and I represent WEST, which a lot of people, the first question they ask is what does WEST stand for? We don't use it as such, but it stands for Women's Economic Self-Sufficiency Team. And WEST was founded in 1989 by 3 women for all women. As a nonprofit, we offer consulting, training, lending, and incubation to anyone, not just women, who want to start or grow a small business. Each year, our committed team nurtures thousands of clients, helping them build strong and sustainable businesses that support their families and communities throughout New Mexico. We operate 6 women's business centers in the state of New Mexico. We have a women's business center in Farmington, in Rio Rancho, in Santa Fe. We have one in Roswell, one in Las Cruces, and we have our headquarters and a women's business center here right on Broadway in Albuquerque. Our Roswell Women's Business Center operates a satellite office in Hobbs for the Hobbs community. That's a recent thing of the last year. The need was just far too great in Hobbs to kind of manage it out of Roswell. And so we set up based on community need, based on some interested parties that were willing to fund a feasibility study at first, and then provide some grant funding for us to maintain an office in Hobbs. So that's a good example of how sometimes the market need dictates how we help. That's not something we sought, that's something that sought us, and we really relish that opportunity to improve economic development in Hobbs. Let's see, Albuquerque, our Women's Business Center, is also the site of our incubator. That's my role. I'm the incubator director. So I thought it'd be helpful today to talk mostly about how WEST fits in kind of an angel or VC ecosystem, access to capital in general. Typically, WEST is seen as a more slow and sustainable partner, meaning people want to start a food truck, people want to open a restaurant, people have a product or idea and need to have a manufacturing space to get it to market, right? And so these are typically thought of as slower growth, not high growth parts of the ecosystem. And in some ways, we want to maintain that space in the ecosystem as we are very good at it. We've historically helped many, many people in that phase. But one thing about WEST is we also can help be both a bridge to those other, I call it like past the gap. And I call the gap, and I'll explain this with our SBA microlending, but I call the gap in like that 100K to 250K investment. Not too many people operate in that space. And I think Drew would be the first to say we're the Angels and other organizations like them are typically 250K and up. And so there's that kind of gap. And sometimes that can hurt the continuity of serving clients from WEST into the VC realm. And so just let me briefly give some kind of parameters for our microlending. And then I thought I would just start a little bit of storytelling of how WEST helped 2 of the names that you saw in Drew's slides. So first of all, as an SBA microlender, we offer loans from $500 to $50,000. So we never exceed $50,000. I shouldn't say never, we did it once. It was a very unique situation. And it was to fund a security company outside of Farmington for the refining plant, a coal plant. And it was essentially secured by a giant cash account that held it as collateral. So that was a very unique situation, but that was $150,000 to give a Navajo woman who was the head of security for many years at this place, her own company, because as they downsized, as they exited Farmington with their coal plant, they needed to hire an outside company, and there were none. And so Verta Blackgoat started a company with WESST's help with this $150,000 essentially escrow account that secured an $150,000 WESST loan for her to operate a security company. So it's a very unique story, but typically we're $500,000 to $50,000. Our capital can be found in small businesses throughout New Mexico. Between that first stage, which was mentioned briefly on some slides, we literally have people like running up their credit cards or rating their 401ks or going to the FFF on a kind of an individualized scale. And then they say, look, I've got some pretty good cash flow, but we've got to invest here. We've got to upscale a little bit. What can we do? And that's where they come to us on average for about $20,000 is our average loan. But we operate that key space in the ecosystem where we're giving people a second or third round of under $50,000 before and in case they don't choose to scale their business 10x or to open multiple franchises, things like that. So, not just salsa companies looking to get into Costco or a food truck, looking to go brick and mortar, or even a restaurant concept looking to franchise. Those are higher growth things that might be on the doorstep of VC. But we're not just in our incubator and in our other cities, throughout New Mexico. We do have companies that are looking to scale to VC, to that higher growth opportunity of 250K above, technologies and inventions. So we do have certified credit repair staff that are nationally certified, national experts in credit repair. Sometimes you run into those in the venture capital world where somebody's too high of a risk because of past performance and things like that. That's where WESST can fit in. Our loans historically have been between 3% and 7%, and right now they're 9%. And so even though 9% seems high, banks right now are nowhere near that, right? It's really prohibitive right now. These 19%, 23% rates. So we still operate in an SBA funded world where we can do 9%, which is kind of nice. And another aspect of our loans up to $50,000 that WESST really thrives is creative collateral, right? So all our loans are collateralized for the most part. We do have some very extreme 0% uncollateralized loans for the most needy of our clients, called a hope loan, where we don't require that. But we are creative with collateral, and I'm talking, we've taken bomb sniffing dogs as collateral. Of course, it was for a bomb sniffing dog company. And you never see somebody pay off a loan so fast as they're paying off when their dog or their horse is collateral, right? We've taken horse trailers, jewelry, high-end mountain bikes. We're just very creative with the collateral, and that's someplace that we thrive as well in these loans of up to $50,000. And since WEST demographics are typically these underserved, what we call SETI, or significantly economically disadvantaged individuals, clients, we provide that key piece of the ecosystem that can be a good resource for VC funds that are intentionally focused on founders of color, historically disadvantaged. And in this ecosystem, these low connection clients, right? They just don't have the connections, the names, the access to people that are in that entrepreneurial startup ecosystem. Despite their great ideas, their hard work, they're building these sustainable companies. And then of course, low wealth founders that just don't have the access, the historic, the friends and family that can give them these funds that we've seen historically. So we do provide literal access to those people, meeting rooms, places for you to meet these founders, opportunities to showcase somebody that runs, maybe it's a salon in Farmington, but they'd like to open 2 other salons because it's that important, what have you. There could be places to invest $250,000, $500K, something like that. In the past 5 years, the loan amounts, the number of loans we've done are probably in excess of 150 or so loans. They average 20K per loan, but when you look at our numbers, 82% are women that we've provided loans for. So, we're only giving loans to about 18% men. BIPOC-owned businesses, 23 loans in the last 2 years. That's 61% of the loans that we've done are BIPOC-owned. So 10 rural loans just in the last year alone. So we're getting into these areas that historically have just been underserved. So, we try to work to fund the entire spectrum of startups that are critical in New Mexico. And so as such, we have provided support and money to a couple of the businesses that you saw on the New Mexico Angels list. And one that I want to talk about briefly is Bennu Bio. They do a flow cytometry technology.
Let's even define that.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew more. And it's one of the it's the double-edged sword of success and limitation of our WEST incubator. But Bennu Bio was only with us for about 9 months. But it's one of those where it's a success story. They were invested into too quickly, right? They got the right funds with the right people and the right support very quickly, and they were kind of off to the races in some ways. So I wish I knew a little bit more. I know it was a cancer. They could through flow cytometry and an innovative technology, they could detect cancers far before other people. They had to build a prototype machine. They had to get ready for trade shows. And they did that all literally 1,000 feet from here in a light manufacturing space that we offer slightly below market rate. I myself worked with them on things like how to have an elevator pitch, how do you do the right branding, turning them on to the right small business marketing firm that isn't going to break their bank and charge them hundreds of $1,000s for a brand package that they can do affordably but successfully and innovatively, and then having essentially sessions with them, monthly sessions about elevator pitch, what to say, how to set up a trade booth, because what you get is people that are scientists, that are innovative leaders, but they might not have that experience. And then very quickly we can provide that to them. And another story was Parting Stone up in Santa Fe, who has recently been invested in various ways. They were on Shark Tank, but they got a pretty traditional early under $50,000 SBA loan from us. And sometimes in those first year or two, it can just be the key thing, let's be honest, that keeps them going for 6 more months, even though their modeling is sustainable, but their cash flow might be a little light, or they've reached a bump in the road or a blockage. And that's where we can come in and say, okay, looks like you've got the right pieces in place, and you need $50,000, we can do that. And so that's just kind of where we are in the ecosystem. But one of my goals as the incubator director here is to let people know of some of our existing companies, that we're a space for high growth and rapid growth. It doesn't happen all the time. It's not our, you want to call it bread and butter. It's not our bread and butter as an SBA Women's Business Center, an SBA microlender, but it's part of the WEST story. And it's something we take pride in and we feel like we can make a difference in for VC ecosystem, the VC end of the ecosystem. Currently, we have probably 2 or 3 companies that are in our incubator that are poised for this rapid growth. Some have been there quite a long time, some a couple, 3 years, and one just entered in March. So one company is Sandia Biotech. They do fluorescent markers, mostly for academic research. So their current customer base is labs that come out of universities, labs that are in universities, but they provide an innovative, they fluoresce markers for cancer research, for other biologic research. They've got kind of an IP that's unique, that is great. And so that's something that's worthy of looking at. And then secondarily, Neo Sand Labs is a wonderful proprietary product that came out of Sandia National Labs. They just recently went on an Eastern European kind of a business junket with the state EDD and some other people, and they were able to enter that European market. They'd been waiting on some patents so they could protect their IP overseas, and they got those. And so now they're able to get their product into more markets. They're essentially a dry fog, a dry mist product that disinfects, decontaminates rooms, spaces, surfaces, came really gangbusters in light of COVID. You know, they can eliminate smells, toxins, and disease in a really effective way. They have entered hotel markets, school markets, hospital markets. They're about to get into transportation markets, and they've been in military markets. One of their most innovative things is they convert these what are these units? They're those shipping units, containers. They convert those into defoggers, and the military can literally drive their equipment through them and decontaminate, defog, kind of mist for bioweapons and things like that. And it's a very innovative product, and they're in our incubator as well. And they're poised for, you know, a real factory, a bigger location, probably in the next, you know, when we talk 24 to 60 months, something like that. So that's what's going on at WEST. I just wanted to introduce you to some of that. A lot of people have the perception that WEST is for, you know, women to start hair salons, you know, women to do a salsa product, which is very true. And we're very proud of that work. But we also provide access to some of these companies that we feel are worthy of angel investment. And even just for getting some of the other clients that you might see ready for further investment. And we've done lots of work, even consulting work with existing companies that are being angel, you know, invested, do have that higher level. They do need to sometimes go back to some basics on product market fit, some creative looks at their marketing, their sales, because we provide that to thousands of customers in our offices. So I'd like to open it up for questions, or if Drew has anything else he'd like me to touch upon, I'm happy to, but hopefully that gave you kind of a.
Yeah. Thank you. So are there some chats? Do you want to check in to see if anyone?
I've been.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Carla. Let's hear what the questions are.
So you mentioned your microloan program. The chamber just became a partner with Lucinda, and we can do microloans between $250 to $10,000. They're actually going to be powered by Lucinda and not with us. I would love to be able to get some information from you as we're setting up our whole application process and that kind of thing, so that I am not reinventing the wheel. Is that something that WEST can help us with?
Sure.
I have a committee that is going to take care of all of that. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned you have a credit repair program. Is that a free program, and how do I connect people into it, even if it's not free? Because we get a lot of requests for capital and that kind of thing, and we find out that they're not ready. We don't want to tell them no, but we want to say not yet, but this is how you can get ready. So can you help me with both of those?
Sure, yeah, the two quick answer to that is, you know, in terms of the loan and make sure you're covering your bases, what I would suggest you meet with Sandro and his team. I mean, he's our VP of lending. He's gonna have far more insight into that and how we can both work together, and that we weave a good ecosystem for those early, you know, financial needs of these businesses. So yeah, I mean, I can only see this as a better thing, because I can tell you from my experience with the loan department is we do move very quickly on loans. Typically our loans go from inquiry to close in under 90 days, but the volume of people that we get is too great for us to serve, right? So we have some great success stories of people coming to us and getting their, you know, money out the door in 45 days or less. And that's being honest, I'm not exaggerating. But I'd like to do that for 12 businesses a year, not just the one or two, you know? And so with the volume that we have, I would love to have a partner. And I think Sandra would be very excited by that as well. And so that would just be a simple invite or an email chain between myself, Sandro, and you, of course, you know, from serving on the board and everything else that can happen pretty quickly. As far as the credit rebuilding, that's going to be Melissa Williams, who is in charge of that program. She's also in the lending department. That's Melissa Williams. And so I unfortunately don't know her capacity to kind of take on. We do offer classes. They're either no cost or low cost. So that kind of answers your question. And yes, as you come into the credit repair process, I'm not intimate enough to know what parts require money, but we'll meet with you to talk about your needs, obviously for free. There's no fee for service per se. However, I'm not sure if somewhere along the process, there aren't fees associated with running another credit report, doing this builder product or something, this rebuild product. I'm just not familiar enough. My guess is that there are no to limited costs because the same people that need their credit repaired typically are not in a position to pay thousands of dollars to get it done. And I know that's not our model, right? This is not a money-making service that we provide. We just know that through the years that we were able to serve loan clients better by helping them in these first few months drop things off their, what to pay first, what to ignore, those kinds of things. And that even just an initial free meeting provides the knowledge and steps necessary to provide a lot of relief for some of these clients. And so that would just be a meeting and even a phone conversation or a Zoom with Melissa would get you on your way. Does that help?
Go ahead, Carla, you probably have,
I
and back here.
have one more. I had a meeting with Agnes a couple of weeks ago and she was mentioning the home loan program. And so we were talking about getting some more information about that. So I'm hoping to get more information from that and you don't have to discuss it here.
Yeah, I'll just say briefly, just because it is very interesting. I mean, the Hope Loan Program, it's a 0% loan program. It does still require collateral, but we're very, very creative with it. And it's really just for the, we're only doing maybe 2 or 3 of these a year. And so the way we've approached it is, and it comes out in the process, right? And so when somebody applies for a loan, we don't encourage people to apply just for the Hope Loan because it's just impossible we bring them through the process normally. Let's say they're looking for a $10,000 loan, they go through the process and it's determined along the way, hey, this is somebody that, has suffered historic economic disadvantage, overcoming crazy barriers. It's where we can create a success story for somebody that has just really, really been left out of the system. And then kind of at closing, they're told, hey, by the way, this WESST loan product will be 0% for you. And it's something that's harder. It's harder to promote and announce because the loan department and Sandro and his team just do a very good process of saying, hey, look, this person needs this money. They have this situation. This is a real success story we'd like to take apart in creating. Let's make this a Hope Loan recipient. That's how those work. And they're for the most economically disadvantaged, people of color. They're just, it just exists as part of our thing. So on the one hand, we love talking about them. We love providing them. But at the other hand, I think you can understand they're not for everybody. They're for typically 2 or 3 people a year, and it comes out in the process. Does that help?
Yes, very well.
Sir.
So there and then here.
Just a quick question. Did you say you provided a client with an SBA loan?
Yeah, so yes, they're before you would get into like a 504 or some of the bigger ones, it's an SBA micro loan. We're categorized as a micro loan. So that's 500 to 50,000. But at the same time, we've seen success, and this is another way that we help people access that 100K and that 250K is once somebody, and we've seen this many, many times through the years, once somebody gets a $25,000 loan from WESST and pays it off, and then they get a $50,000 loan from WESST and pay it off, and then we refer them to those traditional bankers or we refer them to these larger programs, the Angels, somebody else, they're kind of pre-vetted. They've got the cash flow. We can look at their books. We require all that, and it can help those people make more informed decisions. So I always say, try to start with us if you can. If you know, hey, I need 250K, but I could probably do 25,000 just for 2 months for XYZ to get me this piece of equipment, to get me an extra half of the salary for an employee that I need. Do that with us, and then we can help provide that stepping stone for some of the other loan programs that are a little harder to get to. That's typically how we fit in. Yeah.
It's probably a 4-part question.
Good.
And to do with the SBA and my Hope Loan. Being that the grocery stores and open air concept and resilience have a lot of different moving parts are incorporated with it, like solar. I'm on Nation Trust land, so that takes equity away from using my land. And then finding partners, that are willing to be able to go into something that risky. So I basically, as an entrepreneur Navajo Nation, quite new to the Navajo Nation. So they're used to owning their products, their businesses, and to have an entity come in that they don't own, but still help. And going through their funding processes through something called a 5-year plan for 6 million and the fiscal recovery fund, which is the ARPA fund that came down to the Navajo Nation for another. However, bureaucracy and politicalism as it is, it's sitting there and I'm in there. I'm in the race, but it's just them finalizing their parts, and that's why I'm waiting on that. Meanwhile, I still move along, meaning I have my architect, I have my WOW withdrawal already, I have everything. I'm going into working on coordinating our kickoff team meeting with NTOA, Navajo Traditional, and New Mexico Department of Transportation for right-of-ways and easements, BIA, bringing us all together. But as you can see, while you're doing that work, the other side's adding up, because right now I was working for Congress and as a representative, but I had to leave my job because it was becoming a conflict of interest when I started working with USDA and federal grants because I work for federal. So it was a big decision to go full 100% into my business. And I've been working for them on this for about 3 years. Sweat equities there and working with getting my land withdrawal, working with architects. I've worked with businesses or partners in a way that in development where people are willing to do the work and not and know that the 5-year plan is there, that I'm on my needs or my business on the plan. Just knowing that it's there was enough collateral for them to be able to go ahead and do the work. So that was kind of like similar to an angel kind of thing for them to do that. Archaeological survey, biological, all the requirements that Navajo Nation needs in order to move forward. Now I'm done with that. Now I'm working my business site lease signing should be next month. Once that's finalized, then I'm on my own. The Navajo Nation has this weird stipulation where they don't own me. They don't own it. They really don't want to help. So I'm reaching out both on Arizona side and New Mexico side because I will be working in Arizona as well. I have my federal EIN, so I can change into other states. So I've been as far thinking as possible as far as the grocery store, but so it's independently owned and incorporating solar because NTOA is not going to be able to support it with their system and the sustainability on the resilience for the community. So what I'm looking for is that an angel investment or other investment if I could, work with you and perhaps becoming a member of the that'd be wonderful. And also to try and stay in the site.
So what you mentioned is really important, and it's something that we have not started yet. And I would invite you to find other organizations that have a more developed virtual incubation product, and it's something that we have received a grant for. We're in the discovery stage. But there are some things out in New Mexico State that are some virtual incubation pieces. I mean, my wish is that we were 2 or 3 more years down the line in virtual incubation where you could literally have your business incubated without having to occupy an office, right? With the actual physical space, which is what we provide here. In addition to our light manufacturing spaces, we have standard office space, we have dry lab, we have some other amenities. But anyone should be able to get through, business model canvas and product market fit and cash flow projections and pro formas with Zoom meetings and submission of and looking at exercises and things online. It all exists, but the infrastructure is just not quite there yet. And typically you see virtual incubation programs along a vertical, meaning for, agriculture, for biotech, for retail, or what have you, just like you see in accelerator programs. And they would be the next step, which is to really get your business goals met on a monthly, quarterly, yearly kind of check-in and benchmarks. And right now, that doesn't quite exist as much as I'd like to see it. And I might be unfamiliar with some very, very good programs like that. Because it's virtual, there's probably no reason you couldn't do it out of, just inventing this, but maybe ASU has something, especially since the Navajo Nation is both states. But so that's more of the product. I'm hesitant to say come to the WEST incubator because right now our model is the minimum is about a $500 to $600 a month investment in an office space. And you get monthly incubator meetings, you get a receptionist, you get the phone line and the mailing address, you get all those amenities, but that's not really what you need. You don't necessarily, did I get it right? In a marketplace, is that what it is? In a marketplace, you don't necessarily want in a marketplace to be 609 Broadway Boulevard Northeast while you're incubated, because that doesn't provide what you need. Other companies, they do want to be at 609 Broadway Northeast and have an office and have the mail and have that. Whether their activities are there or not, besides meeting with me once a month would be one of their activities, but their business activities don't necessarily have to be there. And that's what you're describing. And really, you're looking, I would start looking at some more robust, especially ones that serve underserved entrepreneurs, for a virtual incubation product. And I'd like to think that we'll be there maybe in 18 months. We've got some of those dollars allocated. I'm really eager to get a curriculum online, to get some monthly meetups and check-ins and benchmarks, setting online, but we're just not there yet. But that's really what I would suggest that you're looking for. Does that help?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I think we're gonna make your contact information available.
Yeah, and I'll leave a few cards, just typical, activity here. I'll leave a few cards and make my things available. And, we just scratched the surface today. I focus a little on incubator and self-serving as the incubator director. But that's, incubation is maybe 5% of what WEST does. Lending is 10%. And then the other, 85% is training classes online, many of which are free that might serve what you're looking for. And one-on-one consultations at all of our 7 offices throughout the state. So there's much more to WEST than what I presented today. Yeah.
Do I need to go to the incubator to get the funding aspect of it?
Not at all. No, you should go to west.org and look up our lending page, and you can start a conversation. Being in Tohatchee, is that where you are? I mean, you can contact the Farmington office, and I hate to say this, our Albuquerque office gets overwhelmed. There's just too many people here doing awesome things that want WEST help, which is great for everybody. But since you're in a unique position, I would actually, even for lending, which is based out of Albuquerque, I would go through Dawn and Janelle and Alyssa Begay, who are out of the Farmington office, that have helped people all across the reservation. They do workshops in Gallup. They do workshops, on the rest. And then also there's is it Change Labs? That is the Navajo specific accelerator incubator kind of services. One of our former employees, Holly Patterson, is an amazing person that works out of the Change Labs office. I think it's in Window Rock, is that right?
In Tuba City.
In Tuba City, that's right. So that's something that could help. And one thing I tell everybody all the time is use everybody.
Yeah.
Use SCORE, use SBDC, use Black Chamber, use the Hispano Chamber, use us all as much as you can, because that only serves you, and we're all here to help in that regard. But specifically for a WEST loan, if you think that's your first thing, 10,000 or 25,000 from us, go talk to Dawn, who's the regional manager out of Farmington. Dawn's last name is Facka, F-A-C-K-A, Dawn Facka. And she'll just help you, because honestly, the volume, she might be dealing with 10 or 25 companies a month. And here in Albuquerque, we're interfacing with hundreds,
To be more familiar with the area as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Change Lab. I am already working with
That's
Change Lab
great.
as well, because the store in itself is 32 million. Besides soft costs and besides the infrastructure,
Right.
that's just the store itself. And so utilizing, like I said, all these amenities.
That's
For
right.
being a veteran, I'm also gonna look at the veteran side as well.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. There's a lot of resources, the VBOC and other resources.
yeah, thank you.
No problem. All right, I'm gonna take off, but thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time, and let us know if you need anything. Thank you. Yeah. appreciate
So we'll
that.
spend 3 more minutes to wrap up here. Okay, great. So thanks to Mark, and we'll get his contact information out for the attendees and people to have this be a resource in WEST. Again, they have 7 offices statewide, so to look at them. So let's wrap up. We heard a lot of good things from Mark, both in terms of what WEST offers in particular, and then also the theory, right? What we might not have heard clearly, so I'll repeat it, is WEST is mostly training. right? And so a lot of times entrepreneurs are like, well, if I have the money, then I can solve X, Y, and Z. But government programs, they have their rules and they have their ways, as I'm sure we've learned a lot about. And so we need to listen. We need to be good listeners. And sometimes entrepreneurs are so busy talking and sharing and trying to convince our idea, we're not always listening. So it's very important to know the program, if it's a government program, what its rules are, what it requires, and if it's an investor, what's important to them as well. Okay, so I'm going to share a couple more things to have us finish up. And then also, and specifically for a Native American context, I was looking up a couple of things that I wanted to make sure as resources that again, we'll send out ahead of time afterwards. We have another friend called Raven Indigenous Ventures. And Nicole Johnny is here in Albuquerque. She's with actually a Canadian First Peoples Fund, and this is a Native VC effort. So again, these are high growth companies that are either helping Native American communities or are Native American owned. And then a couple of examples of companies we've been using, case studies. Mark gave some really good case studies that were in the angel world, Harding Stone and Benu Bio. Two that are in a venture native context is Tonkabar and Navajo Power. Navajo Power is located in Arizona. They're experiencing a lot of high growth and they're really helping to have what I call democratization of energy for people who are native. It's a native owned company. It's also what's called a PBC, which is a public benefit corporation. So it's a socially responsible company. And so if you want to scroll back to that little thing that had the 3 little arrows for me, please. Go back a couple slides. Keep going, yep. Keep going. Great, and so I'll end on this one. When we think about capital, one of the things we want to do is think about what type of capital. So a lot of times people are like, well, I just need money. Well, that's fine, but what type of capital are you going to do and how it's going to work? Mark is debt, right? So they're looking at lending money, which has to get paid back. And then the angel world is more often the equity side, which is shared ownership. But then the question is, if you could switch to go to equity, we'll go to close up on this point. Keep going. So this is the debt slide, and this is non-dilutive, and then next is equity. So the questions I wanted to leave people with is, if you're looking at an equity investment, there's some things we have to figure out, right? It's not a grant, it's not a gift. This is a partner who wants to share your risk and wants to then earn a return. So if you are an entrepreneur, or some of the things we have to share if we're service providers to other entrepreneurs is, what is your company worth? How are you going to explain to an investor what they're getting for their investment, for this check they're writing? And then how are you going to make them comfortable or prove to them what they're going to get out? Because a dollar comes in, they want a dollar plus something on the other side. And so a lot of times I see entrepreneurs be so exuberant, so energetic about how powerful they think what they're trying to do is, they haven't necessarily thought through some of this business stuff. And so I want to end here for us to think about money is available. Mark has great programs. There's a lot of other ecosystem communities. In our community, there's a lot of other ecosystem partners, other programs that are free or that are here to help businesses. They have their rules. If you don't listen to what the rules are, it may or may not be a fit for you. And it may or may not be a help, and it takes time. So understand who our partners are. They want to help, but they help the way they do help. So listen. And then if we're looking at capital and bringing in others to be a partner, it's a little bit like dating, right? You can't find a spouse, a partner, someone to be with for life without being truthful and honest, accommodating, listening, and working with them. And these are relationships that can go on for a long time. So we really need to think through how we're treating other people and how we're working with our partners and what's the give and the get for each side. Okay. So I think for that, I'll stop for today. This deck has some other resources, including an appendix that had a bunch of theory. And then we've got some contact information to send out for Mark Gilboard of WESST. So we're glad he was here as one example. New Mexico Angels will give contact information for that. And we welcome being able to talk to people